Welcome back to WMF News This Week. Smoke-free Ori, smoke-free Florence representatives are here, and those that are assisting in those efforts to cessate smoke, to cessate those smoking habits out there, but also make areas and zones smoke-free. I want to introduce you to our guests again today. Ty Grissett is the registered nurse, also the smoke-free coordinator, as well as Andy Pope, CCU professor, here to talk about some of the data research that he's done. And on the other side of the screen here, George Durant, smoke-free Ori spokesperson, also with the Brandon Agency, and Ian Hamilton, smoke-free Florence. Thanks for being here as well. A lot of research you've done, Andy, about the history as well as the progression of where we could go with this. Bring us up to speed on the thoughts on the economic impact of potentially more smoke-free zones in Horry County.
Sure. There's a number of different avenues and directions that you could go. The important part is looking at research and data that is scientific and peer-reviewed. And that's the only data that I look at when trying to determine the economic impact here in Horry County. And fortunately, there's plenty of research prior to this. There's many states, many counties, many communities that have gone smoke-free that have blazed the trail before this. And it's widely established in peer-reviewed journal articles that the economic impact is either equal, there's no change, definitely no drop, or there's an increase in economic impact. There was a 2007 study that was published when Lexington, Kentucky went smoke-free, showed that there was actually a significant increase in the number of employment opportunities at restaurants and bars because of the economic impact that was made. We'll talk a little bit, if you're interested in the activities, just south of us in another tourism community of Charleston. After their ordinance was passed, it was shown that there was an increase of about 5.8% improvement in the economics and income for the restaurant and bars and the economy in Charleston overall. So it's something that there's plenty of research out there that shows that it's a positive thing and not something that restaurants and business owners really need to be worried about in terms of their bottom line.
And in a little bit, we're going to try to show you a map too of the state that shows some of the municipalities and counties that already have gone smoke-free or have encouraged smoke-free ordinances. I want to bring that point up again because there are a lot of business owners out there, I know, bar owners who've even said to us, look, we've got a lot of smoking clientele that comes in, people that come in from vacation areas from other Midwest states, Ohio, the entire state is smoke-free. We like to know that they can smoke here, but you raise a very interesting point that Charleston increased by some standards 5.8% their business since going smoke-free.
Correct. Yeah, and that's during a time of economic recession as well, which is important to note that you want to get peer-reviewed journal articles because it takes into account the scientific nature and rules out some of the miscellaneous variables that people can use to distort facts.
Right.
And when you're looking at data and looking at research, make sure that it's a reputable source. And that's why this initiative brought in someone like me who understands the scientific part of it. And in Florence, they have the same thing working with Francis Marion University to make sure that the information they present is scientifically proven and it should be cited. You should be able to go and see where their data comes from to know that it's accurate. And that's along with the economics and along with some of the other variables that George may speak of in a minute.
Right, and let's touch on this. People watching at home might have their own opinion about smoke-free ordinances, whether they understand fully or not. The reality is 38 ordinances have passed South Carolina, 33 cities and 5 counties covering more than 30% of the population of South Carolina, correct? So if you say, do people want this overwhelmingly or not overwhelmingly, what do you feel?
Well, I have to point back to something that Andy has brought up, and that's empirical research. And so far, pretty far along in his research right here in this county, 88% of the people say they want smoke-free ordinances. 88 is not an insignificant number. Florence blazed a trail before. It was well over 80% there. Came to this tourist mecca here where we didn't know what the opinions, values, and the economic impact and the fear of the economic impact would be. Andy's data has now proven that 88% of the people, Michael, do want smoke-free ordinances.
Interesting. And Ian, your thoughts as well too on the momentum out there?
Right. Well, if you look at the national data shows that about 4 in 5 Americans are protected by some form of smoke-free indoor workplace law. So we lag a little bit in South Carolina. But as far as Horry County and Myrtle Beach in particular is concerned, which is a tourist destination, the folks who are coming, they're coming from Ohio, they're coming from North Carolina, they're coming from New Jersey, New York, etc. And when they're coming from places that already have smoke-free indoor workplace laws. Sure. And so the expectation is there. And let's be honest, Horry County and Florence County are historically, tobacco-producing counties. But what we have seen, what Horry has seen and what Florence has seen from talking to the people is that overwhelmingly, quite frankly, I was surprised at how high the approval rate or the support rate was. We are seeing overwhelmingly, and in the case of, we were just doing community surveys in Florence, but what we saw, among other things, was that 4 out of 5 tobacco users once people sort of understand, they know what the risk is, there is no risk-free level of exposure, and you explain to them what you're doing, we're talking about indoor workplaces, and most people get it. Right. They get it and they say, that sounds reasonable. I don't have a problem with going outside. I know this is something unique. The product is unique where you use something and yet it can harm other people. Sure. It's not like having a lot of pixie sticks or 3 cheeseburgers or whatever. That only affects the person directly who consumes. Right. This is a unique situation. And so what we found in Florence was that about 4 out of 5 of the tobacco users that we have talked to in different community settings have said, we think that's reasonable.
Interesting. To clarify then too, I know Myrtle Beach had just recently passed their public buildings smoke-free ordinance, and that prevents people from even smoking, I believe, around their sidewalks outside of the public buildings. Is that's different than what you're proposing municipalities do? Is that correct, or not necessarily? Not necessarily.
There are buffers around buildings when people go smoke-free on a campus. Generally, an area 20 feet is a good standard, so that smoke does not waft back in, or people coming in and out of the buildings don't have to be exposed to the smoke. That is a general prerequisite. To whatever level ordinances are passed in the various municipalities we're targeting, whether they extend 50 feet, 20 feet, or whatever, we do want to have some strength in them, but no, that's not unusual. Michael, if I might for a minute shift the emphasis a little bit to protecting our workers. Yeah. It's so important to this initiative to let people know that it's not just the patrons of the businesses that show up, but people that we feel, quite frankly, and it's a strong word, trapped in an environment all day long where they're exposed to secondhand smoke, either as a waiter, a hospitality worker, a bartender, or whatever. And workers' rights are something that we are keenly focusing on right now because it is, quite frankly, epidemic in this area.
Yeah, that's fascinating the way you put it that way. And people that say, look, I need to make money, I need an income. I happen to work in a place where everybody smokes. It's very concerning. We talked about the health toll, and we're taking a look now, the health toll tobacco use in South Carolina. Go over these stats, and if George, if you want to, or Ty, or whoever would best say, these are staggering numbers. Talk about what we're looking at here. Kids under the age of 18 who become new daily smokers each year, 6,300. Now these are national numbers, right?
These are state numbers.
Yeah.
These are state numbers.
South Carolina, okay.
This is in South Carolina, per annum each year.
Adults who die each year from their own smoking, 6,100. This is South Carolina, 6,100 adults die from smoking. Kids now under 18 and alive in South Carolina who will ultimately die prematurely from smoking, 103,000. Adult non-smokers who die each year from exposure to secondhand smoke, 790. Now that statistic right there to me lingers because, as you mentioned, Ian, this is someone who doesn't choose to smoke. This is someone who's inhaling secondhand smoke.
Absolutely, and as George accurately pointed out, what we're looking at, what we're talking about is workers in workplaces. There was a survey, the behavioral risk factor survey done back in 2006, which is the latest one that I know of, where in Horry County it was nearly 40%, I think 38.9 or something like that. Nearly 40% of the people who were surveyed said someone had smoked in their workplace within the last week. And so that's what we're talking about. I mean, the Surgeon General in his report in 2006 said working a full shift, an 8-hour shift in an indoor smoky workplace can be like smoking a pack of cigarettes yourself. Wow. And so that's staggering. And this is a unique situation where where people use one thing, this one particular product, and yet it harms other people. And when most people understand that, they understand that it's eminently reasonable that we have smoke-free indoor workplaces.
The impact of smoking in the workplace and the efforts to curb that as we come back. Stay with us.